Hello, everyone. On behalf of Women in AI and Robotics, I'm welcoming you to this panel discussion called Smart and Sustainable, How AI is Accelerating Sustainability. My name is Carina, and I'm your host today. I'm leading the Stuttgart Chapter of Women in AI and Robotics, and we are very happy to organize such an event for you on a global scale. So I'm really excited to know where are you coming from. You can drop the country in the chat if you want, so that we can see how globally our audience is for tonight. So my personal connection and my background with this topic stems from my background in the mechanical industry, and I previously worked on AI and sustainability in the manufacturing industry, focusing how I could make manufacturing equipment more sustainable. And I'm so excited about this topic and thought, okay, why not use this broad network to spread this excitement about the topic and invite experts to our table and discuss this for 1 hour tonight. And this is not possible without a good team. And I have the best team with me tonight. And from the core team of Women in AI and Robotics, we have Anja Fessler with us, Laura Talowitz, and Stephanie Bade, and maybe some others more in the background. So feel free to come on the cam and wave so that everyone sees now who's here from our network. And thanks a lot that you helped organize this event. So the agenda for tonight looks like this. So we give a short introduction about women in AI and robotics so that you shortly know what is this network about and why do we do such events for free. And this is then followed by the introduction to our panelists for tonight and the main part of this event, the panel discussion. And last but not least, you have the opportunity to ask all your questions to our panelists and also to our core team members about the network. So stay until the end and you can ask all the questions. Also during this event, just post the question in the chat, and Anja and Laura, they will manage it. And we can squeeze them all in at the end. So that's it. And for the introduction, and now I will jump to the presentation here. I think you already have somehow my one slide here. It's not the best presentation mode, obviously, but so the Women in AI and Robotics Association is a non-profit association headquartered in Munich, and it was found during the pandemic, so it's already like 2.5 years ago that we operate from Germany, but we span all over the globe. So we have chapters also in Canada and other countries where we want to span all over the globe, obviously. So our mission is to close the gender gap in AI and robotics and to increase the female representation in these fields through mentorship, education, hackathons, and other events, for example, some event like this. And up to this date, we have 850 members worldwide and a reach of over 10,000 people with our newsletters and social media. And also our core team members are rapidly growing. We have chapters in Berlin, Bremen, Munich, Stuttgart, also in Heilbronn. We just launched it last week. And in Canada, we have Toronto, Waterloo, and Montreal. And we have formal partnerships with DFKA, for example, and also our collaboration partner with UN Women. So that's what we do. And just to give you a short overview, there are more facts, of course, but I don't want to overwhelm you with the facts, of course. We are all here for the main topic of tonight, which is sustainability and AI, of course. So I will close this presentation. Whenever there are questions about the network, we can discuss them in the end, and feel free to also ask network-related questions. So jumping back to the agenda. So starting with the workshop. As you know, the workshop is about sustainability and AI, and I'm very happy that we have so great experts in Germany that we could invite for this. And there's just one little, unfortunately, sad thing happening today. So two speakers couldn't make it because they were sick, are sick. So we have to make the panel without Vanessa and Anne. It's very unfortunate, and we are very sorry that it's so spontaneous, but we still have Gyri and Lara with us. So we have 3 people up the stage, and it's going to be a cool, exciting discussion between the 3 of us. So let me introduce Gyri Reiersen to you. Gyri Reiersen is a co-founder and CPO of Tanso Technologies. And she has been long active in the climate and tech space and was also awarded as one of the top 20 women in AI in Germany by Rework in 2022. So we are very happy to have a startup founder with us, and she will explain more about her background in AI and carbon accounting later. And the second guest we have with us tonight is Lara Hensel. Lara is a sustainability strategy consultant at Capgemini Invent and is very passionate about driving the sustainability transformation in companies. And this she wants to achieve by applying tech and data-driven methods and solutions. So I'm also very happy that you're here with us, Lara. And Lara and Gyri, we start and rock the stage also as 3 persons. So more time to discuss and ask you questions. So to dive into the topic and to give setting the stage, I wanted to quickly introduce the topic of sustainability in AI, because there might be some confusions regarding the angle that people look at the problem. So one community might look at this topic from the angle of green AI, like how can I make my AI solution more sustainable, that my model does not consume too much energy during the training phase, so that my architecture is less heavy and therefore I could have a lighter and more or less energy intensive operations. And on the other hand, there are people who approach AI and sustainability from the angle of how can I apply AI for good? Like how can I apply artificial intelligence in an application that has the goal to optimize some sustainability goal, for example, to optimize the resource efficiency of machines, or reducing the usage of water, for example, like the consumption. And this is like the other side of AI for sustainability. So these are like the 2 playing fields that are mainly common when people talk about AI and sustainability. And talking about sustainability, there's like the next topic that might be controversial. So some people talk about sustainability, but not everyone means the same. So there are, on the simplest form of things, like 3 pillars that you can distinguish in the it's called sometimes triple bottom line. So people, planet, profit, and then people think of like an ecological, social, or economic aspect of sustainability. So this is just like one framework, like how people approach sustainability. But before I talk too much, I maybe hand over this question also to the expert here. Maybe, Gyri, you also use sustainability a lot in your practice on your daily work life. And if you assess sustainability of organizations with the work that your startup is doing, you might also rely on certain definitions or angles on how you approach this problem. So maybe you can quickly introduce the daily work that you do in the area of sustainability and how you assess sustainability.
Yeah, sure. I think I'm very much aligned with you when it comes to the definition of sustainability and the triple bottom line, and especially the 3 pillars or 3 aspects of it. What we additionally think of when it comes to my team, but also the entire company of Tanso, what we're thinking about is this: you have the economic being maybe the core that many think about, but outside of that, if you don't have the social aspects, if you don't have the people working, then at some point you won't have the economic benefit. If all your workers get tired and burned out, of course you don't have any economic profit. And outside of that is the environmental. It's not maybe you don't feel the direct impact of it. Same with climate, you don't necessarily feel the direct impact, but it does have the fundament for everything else around it. And also, therefore, we are focusing mainly on the environmental aspect of sustainability and using also data to make conscious, great sustainable decisions. Maybe one addition there, sustainability also means to sustain, to be able to thrive over time. And I think that's what we should keep in mind. That it's not only about sustainability for 1 year or sustainability in a moment of time, but also being able to, throughout generations and throughout decades, as a company, for example, some of our customers say that we've been a family business for 70 years. Of course, I want my sons and daughters to take over this company and be financially, socially, and environmentally sustainable for the next 70 years. And that is all the three aspects matters over time. But now we see this dependency on the environmental being more stronger and stronger than what we might have in the past.
Sure. Perfect. And Lara, how do you perceive this from your experience in consulting? Do your clients focus more on having like a green AI solution, or do they more focus on applying AI for the good?
I'm also aligned with your definitions and also experience. So from my experience in consultancy, they focus on both aspects. So on the one side, when you apply AI, of course, you have to manage the footprint itself. So like in this context, the environmental one. But on the other side, of course, it's also more and more interesting to assess the potential of AI to solve sustainability related issues and problems. And what's also important really when you talk about sustainability, to assess all three aspects of sustainability. So environmental, social, and governance, because nowadays many people often think that sustainability is only about the climate environment, and they have a particular focus on this topic. And of course, because of climate change, it's like one of the most pressing aspects of it, but it's also really important to consider the social and governance aspects as well.
Yeah, that's important. And maybe you can make it more tangible with an example of that Capgemini Invent worked on, like where did they apply AI for sustainable solutions?
Yeah, so one example of a client project was in the automotive industry. So there we did a technology use case screening. So we basically assessed different technology use cases, also AI, and evaluated how these use cases can drive the sustainability performance and agenda of the company. And so we basically developed an assessment methodology of these different use cases in order to assess their sustainability potential. So both the positive impacts, but of course also the negative ones, because as we just said, like training an AI model has also like a big footprint. So you also have to take in consideration these aspects.
Maybe one additional thought on that aspect, also distinguishing between the different levels, if you want, or different pillars of sustainability. If you think about financial sustainability, I'm sure that all of us have great use cases for efficiency optimization through AI, and how to make money, basically how to use less resources, how to optimize profits through AI. We all know it. And I think that's also the same mentality you can think about in the two other dimensions. but the KPI that you're optimizing for, the parameter that you're optimizing for is not money, but it's maybe carbon, it's maybe water, it might be energy consumption, if you want, or in other cases, and I think that's, there's a lot of cool use cases on how it can also be used in social contexts. So everything from how to use AI to have less biases when it comes to recruiting, when it comes to, there's also a lot of use cases of bias when it comes to recruiting. So in the opposite way, using it for negative impact on social. But for example, this morning I went to one of our customers, an industrial company in the chemical sector, where they had introduced robots and using robots for the heavy lifting work. Where they usually would have to have workers go on shifts, not being able to work for a long period of times because it was so heavy on their backs, leaning over, lifting heavy materials, and now introducing robotic arms that have computer vision detecting the objects, then reduces, of course, the workload, but making sure that the people can rather work on other things than getting back problems. There are also these use cases for AI in the other dimensions.
Yeah, absolutely.
And how do you help organizations with the solution that you develop to better measure like these KPIs? So cost is always super simple, but if you speak more of like the soft factors, do you also account them in your reporting?
Yeah, or do you want to jump on this one first, Lara? I don't know. If
no, please go ahead.
You started. And maybe I can take a minute or two just to first give a bit of context what we currently are doing, and maybe Lara can do the same of what kind of your offerings are normally. So first of all, I'm the co-founder of Tanso, and Tanso is a software startup in Munich that is doing climate intelligence for industrial companies. That means that we are basically keeping on measuring the environmental impact of these companies and not necessarily doing the social or the financial aspect yet. We're starting basically off with environmental to keep our focus first on that. Also, we see that's one of the aspects that are just not at all measured. But still, there's a lot of regulatory requirements coming in, forcing these companies to actually report on it, like we said, because when you have transparency on the numbers, you can also start optimizing for them. And it's the same with if you see how many injuries there are per year in these industrial companies or production sites, you can start looking into how can you actually improve them. We're not looking into injuries at the moment, but we're focusing a lot on carbon and how much emissions or greenhouse gases comes out of the different operations that companies have, be it internal operations, but also through their supply chain. And that means that our use cases that we have internally for AI is not on kind of optimizing for broken backs, I was about to say, or robotic arms, or telling companies how to do their production in that sense, but rather on where do you find your hotspots or outliers when it comes to your production in terms of energy efficiency and environmental impact of that? Where do you have the least green energy in your production at the moment? But also looking into your supply chain and analyzing where your reduction potentials in your supply chain, be it locations for your suppliers, for example, where do they produce their goods that you buy? Or what is the difference between the recycling rates between the different suppliers? If you choose one supplier that is a bit more expensive, but might have more recycling percentages in their materials, then if you put a price on carbon with that, suddenly you have a better deal choosing that supplier, for example. So that's currently what we do, and only focusing on industrial companies. So I'm walking around a lot with steel-capped toes and visiting other factories and seeing how they can improve their environmental impact.
Yeah, for the biggest impact, you have to go where it's the dirtiest from like the pollution that is caused by these industries. So it's the right way.
Maybe one quick case there, because we just found it out last week. With one customer, we realized that the 5 to 6 largest suppliers that they had delivering raw material had almost 70% of their total emissions. So by supporting their suppliers or putting pressure on their suppliers. And after identifying that they are the biggest ones, they are now able to reduce their emissions by almost half in the total corporate emissions, which is quite astonishing when you realize if you don't have the data on it, they would maybe started turning off the lights in the office, which does make a big difference in the big scheme of things.
Okay, I can continue. I share a very similar experience. So also our clients, it's often more about the environmental topics. So more about the environmental KPIs, because that's easier. So it's already more out there. So basically, for example, Gyri, as you said, so that you can track for example, the CO2 footprint. Also, the social and governance topic, they're becoming more and more important. Key driver, of course, are the regulatory requirements. So there are more and more disclosure requirements for different companies. But it's but there are many challenges to basically to quantify the social and governmental implications and KPIs. So our clients, in the social and governmental space, it was one example was, for example, also how you develop ethical guidelines in order to apply AI. So that's one aspect, but that's of course it's not so much about the KPIs. It's more in general about the whole setting, how you apply AI in the right way. And then a social aspect is, of course, for example, also again about the supply chain topic. So that's a very hot topic. The German supply chain law. So it became into force this year. And there are more and more AI-based or blockchain-based solutions out there in order to track the sustainability, compliance, and performance of the different suppliers. And they also try more and more to include, of course, KPIs in order to track the performance and compliance of the different suppliers.
Perfect. This was also like the first hint to the next questions, a little bit about trends. You said that there are regulations going on. The question goes to both of you. Are you aware of other trends that might accelerate or inhibit the adoption of AI for sustainability?
The first thing that comes to mind is, of course, electrification. I guess it's also in my personal sphere, also, of course, given as a fact that, of course, we need to electrify everything, and especially in industrial applications. And with the electrification comes 3.5 multiplier of how much energy we need to also produce. So how I see it is, I guess, especially also with more decentralized grids and a lot more energy that is needed, and that also will not be as stable as nuclear or fossil fuels, will also then mean that we have a lot of optimization to do and a lot of controlling mechanisms that needs to or can only be done through AI. Let's put it like that. And where I think the greatest opportunity to also quickly adopt more AI is also to make therefore also the regulation to use AI in these contexts much more available.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a dynamic topic, so there are so many interesting use cases, but Gyri, I agree. I also see the basically energy use optimizations based on AI as one of the most promising trends or use cases. But also, again, the smart supply chain topic is like a very hot topic and has a lot of potential. Because when you apply AI in this supply chain topic or procurement, on the one side, companies can increase their productivity, like based on improved automation and process optimization. But on the other side, AI-based solution can also help to improve the ESG performance of companies. Because as we've already said, you can often identify CO2 hotspots along the value chain. and also now more social topics like social hotspots, basically, or human rights, the supply chain. And of course, also helps you with your supplier relationship management. So as we have also said, you can also then helps you to track the compliance with your own sustainability standards and so on. So yeah, this topic is also a very interesting trend. Yeah.
I would also like actually add, because I'm a bit obsessed with ChatGPT 4 at the moment, if I'm being personal opinion. And I just love all the user cases that also come with image and language. So not only structured data in terms of numbers, but also I think I've read over 200 sustainability reports of customers and the likes, and they're all the same. And I'm like, when will we have an auto-generated, so like ChatGPT 3 type of sustainability reports with their own logo and CI and data? Considering doing that as a hackathon within our engineering team over the weekend. But I also believe that there's a lot of potential in actual product design that currently isn't realized enough, because especially going over to a more circular economy, rethinking business models in terms of leasing products, or really doing the secondary market, or if you sell something, like think about it, if Apple is responsible for so much emissions that are created in the process of creating or building an iPhone, and you sell it once, you only get the profit once. If you're responsible for those emissions and have to account for them, why not then sell it once, buy it back, fix it a little bit, sell it twice, get the same amount of money for it second time around, but not have the same production costs or emission costs. And I think that's also where AI can be part of, either, I was about to say, make the adaptations, or if you have something that is wrong with a product coming back, it won't be the same production line all over. So it's not the same all of, how to call it, it's different every time, and adapting to the differences, and then adapting the repair flow, if you want, all those types of personalification, but also in generative design of how do you design 3D printings that have never before been thought of as for a human being. All those generative AI topics will definitely be a thing for circular economy and reduction of resources or material consumption.
I just saw an example yesterday. I don't know if they used AI or some generative methods, but it was a new design for a basketball, which was 3D printed. And they said you never have to worry about whether you have to inflate it or not, because it will behave the same wherever you are. So it doesn't depend on the air pressure, and that's like some very durable ball there. And so if you use more advanced methods in product design, this could really help. And this is just one tangible example that I want to add here. Okay, so we talked a lot about what benefits AI can bring to the topic, but obviously we also have to speak about some challenges. So what challenges are you aware of, like from a technical perspective, like an ethical, societal, or even a legal perspective? Yeah, and how can they be addressed? Maybe you can share some examples on how, for example, an organization is challenged with technical issues while implementing an AI solution for sustainability.
Lara, feel free to go first. I can add to
that. Yes, I can start. Yeah, so I mean, I'm at Capgemini Invent. I'm in the sustainability strategy and transformation team. So our clients, they have different sustainability like issues or problems, and therefore they come to us so that we advise them. So as we also said, one key driver are these regulatory requirements. And then basically they have this one specific problem. And then we as consultants, together with the clients, look for different methods and tools to solve these challenges. And AI can be one method, but the question is then more, does it make sense to apply in this particular use case? So it's not about directly from the beginning, how do we apply? It's more about, does it make sense to apply it in this situation, because it's not always the one-fits-all solution. So that's important to say. And then when you decide to choose an AI-based tool or evaluation method, then of course you always need to consider both the benefits, but of course also like the potential negative externalities. And like also for our clients, when you apply AI for sustainability, there are the same sustainability related problems also other companies have. So one example is that you train the models or use data in an ethical way, so that there's no discrimination and bias. And then of course also that you try to develop in a way that it doesn't have like a huge carbon footprint. That's difficult, but there are like different ways in order to improve it. And one experience is also particularly in more small or medium-sized companies, that it's often also about the lacking skills in order to apply AI, because you really need the right skill set and of course also human expertise in order to really apply AI. So yeah, and of course it's still seen as something really new, and yeah, so that's needed.
Yeah, I think totally agree. I think also that there's a lot of pretend use cases for AI where you apply AI and you could just need a step function or some basis kind of on and off switch that turns on when the threshold is reached. So I think also there's sometimes a bit the feel of let's use AI here, but it doesn't actually add any value. It just introduces more inconsistencies, if you want. I would say the biggest challenge that I currently see is data and data management. So like, how do you either use data or gather data in a secure way to then fine tune already existing pre-trained models or just create new models if you want. And that I see as one of the, we also notice that internally, like we don't want to use, like even if just imagine if you had all the data in the world on supply chains, you can make a great AI model and everything will be fine. But there's very few companies that want to share their proprietary data and especially very sensitive data. Think about all the competitional, I don't know what the rules are called in English, but the kartellrechtlichen Hinweise und sowas. In German, so you don't want to share any competitive data with other competitors, of course. And there are already some great initiatives where, for example, different industry associations come together and say, let's create the common database or benchmarking data if you want, where I think that is a good step, but I think it can be even stronger, and where I think the fastest progression comes through great joint collaborations of putting data together. That especially goes for emission calculations, and currently carbon accounting as one use case for this is quite dispersed, and the confidence intervals for the results are quite wide. It's not really an accurate science, it's more an art, and that also means that there are
benchmark data available, by the way, since you said that there are initiatives to compile such data to have a baseline. So is there something out there that you can recommend, or is it still under heavy development?
I'm currently very much pushing for it within the associations I am in to publish it. And that's also where there is some form of there's a lot of fear, of course, of data, especially in Germany. I think that as an international myself, I noticed that there's a lot of data fear in German companies compared to other countries where they more openly share. So there is some data that is available, but currently there's a lot of data protectionism going on, which of course doesn't help anyone. If you have a company that only knows their own data, they only know their own data, and that's a very biased model. If you have multiple companies that know multiple companies' data, of course, it's less specified for that company, but it also helps everyone. One thing I would like to add is also, you shouldn't use AI when you need accurate science without having really tested the AI model thoroughly first. That means that in carbon accounting use cases, if you want an estimate yes, you can use AI models. But if you want accounting, just imagine doing financial accounting with AI models and like roughly this is what we made in profit last year. That's not how you do accounting. So I think that's, you need to also know your use cases for when is AI actually adding value and when isn't it. And then if you want to have that, you need to do pilot projects properly with the data, knowing that the data actually adds the value that you need.
Perfect. So maybe one more question regarding like challenges, and this time more about risks and unintended consequences. Are you aware of like use cases? Maybe at the beginning you already said something regarding hiring, but also like other AI use cases that conflict areas of sustainability that you might share and raise awareness on this.
I saw, as I come from the academic angle with AI and using satellite imagery to estimate carbon stock in forests, and did a couple of benchmarks on how much the different models that are openly available, so the different satellite maps, how much they estimate the different forests and how much per square, if you want. And there's a wide variety of how much carbon there is per square of the same square in the world. Of course, it differs over the year and it differs over multiple years, but there is a lot of this blind belief in AI often, that if you have one AI model trained on Nordic forests, that you can just apply it to all forests of the world, and then the carbon estimations are correct. So that's kind of one stupid use case, but it's such a visual use case of, you shouldn't just believe it, whatever comes out of it, and you need to test it and you need to benchmark it and continuously train it for all the biases that it might have. I don't know, Lara, if you have any better.
No, that's a good hint. And also maybe from my experience, I also worked on a sustainability project where we like accounted for the emissions in the scope 3 of a company. And for those who don't know, scope 3 are like the up and downstream emissions of a company. And it was also quite difficult to assess that, because in your supply chains, you source products from all over the world and you sell it to everywhere. And for account how much energy your machines, for example, use over the lifetime, you need to know the footprint, like how much carbon dioxide is emitted for using 1 kilowatt hour of energy in a certain country. And this is, and you need this also as a forecast over the years. So it's quite a lot of such estimates that you have to use. And this is like very vague sometimes. And therefore you have to rely on certain benchmark data, as we discussed earlier. And yeah, maybe Lara, do you have like a third example you want to share, like anything that we have to closer look at when we use AI and sustainability?
I had a similar experience or issue as you, Carina. So in my last job, I was a project manager for a research project in the financial sector. So there AI and machine learning use cases were applied in order to solve ESG data gap in a financial sector. So, and this was based on a financial big data cluster. So, but of course, as you can imagine, the client data of banks and so on are very sensitive. So that was also one part of the research project. So how you can develop like secure data sharing spaces so that you can use these sensitive client data, but still in a way that they're like, there's a high data protection sovereignty degree. But in the beginning, of course, it was not directly possible to use the data, or like only to a certain degree, and therefore we also had to use quite many approximations and estimations. So then, yeah, it was also then difficult. It was similar as your case, just different sector.
Okay, yeah, good. Nice that you also had the same experience. So we just yeah, we share it, and it's not that we did it wrong. So we did the best that we can. Okay, so last but not least, maybe also to wrap it up a little bit before we jump into the Q&A, also to the audience, feel free to post questions in the chat, because after the next question from my side, we want to also open the stage to your questions, so feel free to put them in the chat. And yeah, the last question is like forward-looking. So we talked about how you apply AI for a sustainable cause, and looking forward, what are your wishes for the future, and what's important that needs to be done so that we can accelerate on this journey here.
Gyri, do you start?
Right,
Or-
go first. No, so to answer your two questions on how we are currently doing it, and also where I see it going. I have this kind of like dream that sustainable decisions are just made by AI automatically and no human interaction needed. So kind of like if you think it's a better choice financially, like trading, for example, financial trading, the robot just does it, you know? And that would be my dream of things just happening automatically. Nobody has to think about that. Environmental or social decisions have to be taken into account. It's basically a KPI that is part of the equation automatically happening. Of course, to get there, and this is also a bit my wish, we need more digitalization. I think they always make fun of this, that the digitalisierung in Germany, especially like the digitalization of the industry is still going strong. If it has ever started, but it still takes a bit of time, because you need the data digital, and you need to digitalize a lot of data, like be it through computer vision or language processing. You can do a lot of that to digitalize it. It doesn't have to be numbers, but we need to get there first. And I think that's kind of what every stakeholder can do, and push for digitalization, push for that part. And the second part is to do pilot projects. I don't think AI's use cases are necessarily the best cases, but you need to test it out in a small scale first. That might be to gather a small test data set, and then try out different models and see if, like, do we even get close? Or is it just better to not do it and I don't know, go for the more also more stochastic, more 1-0 solution can be the solution for it, but you never know if you don't test it out. And especially, I think a lot of German companies are very risk averse of using things that are not 100%. I was about to say wasserdicht, but watertight, waterproof. And AI is mostly not fully waterproof, but there is a risk associated with it. And you can only overcome that risk if you test it out small scale, and then slowly but steadily have your test mechanisms scaled up.
Perfect. And Lara, what's your wish for the future to have
Yeah.
more AI and sustainability?
Yeah. So also, as Gyri said, it's really all about the data, because I mean, in the end, that's the base for AI and machine learning. So also for AI for sustainability. And from my perspective, we really need ecosystem also with regard like to data, because so really the data availability and digitalization has to be improved. And one way to do so are really also these cross-industry initiatives. For example, this research project I just talked about, this financial big data cluster, so that you really have like research projects, but also like in the different industries, so that different actors from different companies, different sectors really work together or create platforms so that they can learn from each other and also share data, of course, in a secure way, so that in the end also the AI and machine learning models and tools can be improved, but it's also different sustainability issues can be better solved. So I think that's one very important way to go.
Perfect. Thanks a lot. That's it from the main part of this conversation. I'm very, very happy that you shared your insights with us. And I see also a first question in the chat. So the question is about the existing tools that are used within the industry to make algorithms more eco-friendly. I'm aware that there are some lines of code shared by researchers in this context, but does the industry care about reducing carbon dioxide emissions of algorithms? Maybe
I can quickly jump in from the industry, so very production focused industry. They literally don't care about this at all, from my perspective, partially also because they're not tracking their energy consumption of the servers. So they, for example, don't keep that into their carbon accounting. They don't add the server consumption that they have normally unless it's on premise. So there are, of course, this transparency layer of the moment you sit in Zoom calls every day, you might not think about the servers running in background to run visual meetings, and you don't take that into account into your carbon accounting. And of course, then you don't know that your consumption, if it goes up or down, and your influence on it. And with the use cases that we have, they don't take that much into account. They just take it as a given.
Yeah, I have the same experience, so that they don't care about it so far, but I can imagine that this will also change in the close future.
Maybe to answer the first question in terms of what tools are being used, I think the most obvious one is to use pre-trained models and not have to train all the models from scratch. And I think more and more with OpenAI and the models that come out, of course, they're less transparent, but there are some really good models out there that are already trained, and you can just fine tune them with your, let's say, local data, and that reduces the emissions through training a lot already.
perfect. So there's a thank you from the chat, and yeah. So are there other questions coming in?
I'm sorry, that's pretty small. Maybe I could ask the question by myself. So thank you for your insights. It was quite inspirational. What is now when here are some people in the room who are working in industry and would like to become active or would like to reach out to the responsible people in company? What are your recommended 3 first steps to get started?
So the first 3 steps in order to how you can apply AI for sustainability, or what exactly do you mean?
To generally use AI in the sustainability context to do something for good.
Okay.
When there is nothing out there yet.
Yeah. So from my perspective, so at least from my experience, I mean, as I said, I'm in consultancy. So so first of all, you need to check what is basically the specific sustainability issue, or in the sustainability field, what are potential problems or use cases you have where you want to improve your sustainability performance, for example, or decrease your CO2 emissions, your footprint. And then you basically then have to assess, is AI a good method here to apply it? Because as we have said, it's not always the one-fits-all solution. And compared to other solution, if it's the right, if it's a good method, then of course you also need to assess the potential negative externalities. So for example, what is the carbon footprint? And maybe compared to other solution, does it make sense here to apply it or not? And then also try to find a way to minimize the carbon footprint. And then, of course, also, as we've said, the data availability is very important. So you need to assess whether there's the data availability and quality is sufficient enough, or to find ways in order to have good enough data, and that it's really available to apply AI here, from my perspective.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would maybe jump on that and say that if it depends on what angle you come from. I think I agree a lot with what Lara said, like just find out which problem you want to solve and then have a look at it and find the best way to solve it. I think from another angle, where I also somewhat come from, is that AI is a tool. Of course, you have, or to put it like this, AI is a toolbox because you have a lot of different tools in there. There's a lot of screw thingies and hammers and I don't know, drills and whatever. If you walk around with a hammer, you need to also fine tune the skill of hammering. And if you want to really apply AI, and like we, for example, do in my team, of having kind of sprints of testing out, does this hammer solve the problem? Then you also need to know how to use a hammer, because of course you can swip it around and use the wrong end of it and it doesn't work at all. So I think for my encouragement would be to actually learn how to use the various different ways of AI or different tools of AI and use them in small scale, like learn to start with a small nail. And then at some point you might become an artist, a hammer artist. I don't know if that exists, but it's a new thing. And I think that's one way of really figure out how do you fine tune and get better at that skill, because then you can also use it in the different use cases that are valuable to use it. But there isn't a one-to-one, of course. Like, for example, I come from computer vision mainly and have worked a lot with visual data that does not work as well, except for quality controls in industrial applications. Industrial applications is much stronger NLP use cases, and where you have to work more on the clustering of activity data from procurement or supplier data and information from them, which has nothing to do with visuals. But you still have to learn that skill and you have to fine tune that skill or that screwdriver if you want, but you can do. I think maybe just as an overarching thing, the moment you are in a position where you have a little bit of power in a company, that can be in your team, that can be in the bigger company, you know, the C-level position or a team lead position. If you have any form of power, you need to figure out first, like Lara said, what is your biggest sustainability problem? And then is your mission to figure out how can I build a case to solve it? Like, what do we need to solve this problem? And then you have to go to the boss, get the finances for it, and then start testing the different solutions you might have and say, this is how we think we might solve it. Let's try to solve it. Does it solve it? Yes, scale it. And then you have a huge impact in your job, no matter what.
Thank you. Quite good answer, and I totally agree with you. Last sentence to that one. Sometimes as the companies are getting bigger, you have a sustainability department and you have an AI department. And to bring that together is, like, I see also like a huge challenge. But thank you. Good point.
Perfect.
We all should be climate activists or sustainability activists in all our positions, no matter what it is.
Great. So the hour is already over, or nearly over. So I would like to close the official part of the panel. Thanks a lot to our guests. Thanks a lot to our audience for joining. Feel free to connect with us, and also please follow Women in AI and Robotics to not miss any upcoming events. So there will be more in-depth workshops coming up soon, also other tech-related topics, for also community meetings that are locally, for example. So there's a wide variety of things, and just feel free to check out our website as well. There you can have, or you can see a form where you can become a member. The membership is for free. And I would really like to encourage everyone to spread the word, come and join us. The network has a lot of benefits for you. You can find like-minded women in this field, and we share a lot of opportunities like speaking engagement and also more like insider topics in this Discord server that we have. So sometimes you will find some cool things over there, and this is only for our members. So make sure to sign up. And I'm very happy that we had Lara and Gyri with us. We let this run for like 5 more minutes. We will stop the recording. Whoever wants to stay and ask something without the recording can stay. Maybe this is then a chance to ask more like personal questions or about the network. Just feel free. The core team and the speakers will stay for like 5 to 10 minutes, maybe, yeah, depending on whether there are any questions. So thanks a lot, and the recording will stop now. If I find the button.